Hey everybody, Vulcan 2018 is going strong down here in the town of Vulcan, Alberta. My name is Russell Skeet from Sun Country Radio in High River, Alberta. Just want to let you know we got a great special guest coming up. She's a big star. She was in Battlestar Galactica. Now she's in Star Trek Discovery. Rekha Sharma is going to be joining us here on the big stage at Vul-Con 2018. Rekha Sharma!
Wow. Yeah, there you go. Hold that sign. Just in case, because there's a few people that might not know who you are. Yeah, get those photos where you can. And so you have to bring that, let's just put that right there. So just in case people forget halfway through.
Yeah.
So you and I have had a chance to chat a couple of times in the last couple of days. I think you're having a good time. Is that fair?
Oh no, it's terrible. Boring. Mean people everywhere I look.
You guys gotta
no
step
real
it up.
fans.
Yeah, I know. We're trying. You know. Come on, you're Canadian. You can fit in here with us, no problem. I don't have to say, I can say double to you and you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
I love that. So I'm glad you're having a good time. Everybody's loving you, I'll tell you that. That's all I hear. Reckon this, reckon that, she's awesome.
Oh, thank you. I know, I in case you didn't know I was being sarcastic, I'm having an awesome time. I love all of you.
Yeah. If you were on Facebook, we would have flamed you by now because you just can't prove that stuff. But here, we're good.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, because when you can say things like that and everybody gets what you're going at. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, social media, not so much. Speaking of which, how is life on social media for you? I remember when Discovery came out, there was a lot of talk about it on social media. Some good, some bad, some in between, but I think overall, this is a pretty enthusiastic crowd. You guys like Discovery, right? You all watch it?
Awesome. You know, I got it though. Like, I was worried too as a fan, you know. New Star Trek had been, almost a decade since Enterprise. And we're doing a prequel, and you know, it's gritty. I was worried, honestly. I was just like the rest of the fandom, I think. I was like, ooh, went to the premiere, ooh, hope this isn't embarrassing, you know. Loved what I did on set, but you have no idea what it's gonna turn out like until you see it. And I saw it, and I was beaming with a smile. I was so proud, and I still am so proud of what they've done with Discovery.
And as well you should be.
Thank you.
That's an amazing show.
It really is.
It's amazing. I think the thing that got us as fans, because we talk about it a lot, was, well, it was supposed to come out at a certain time, and it didn't. And then they kept delaying it.
Right.
They kept pushing it back. We're like, come on, you know. And then it finally showed up, and you know, the first episode or two, because came out as a two-parter, it was like, okay, they changed the Klingons, they did a couple things different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still Star Trek, go. That was my take on it anyway.
Is it still on? Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're good. But it was just so awesome when it came out, because again, like you said, it's been a dozen years or so since any kind of Trek was on. So, yeah. Tell me a little bit about your role on the show. Now, we didn't see you until episode 3.
Yes. Yeah, because you didn't even come on to the Discovery until episode 3. It was all the Shenzhou before that, right?
That's right. They had to set it up. Then all of a sudden, I'm watching, and it's oh my God, it's Rekha Sharma. She's on this. Is going to be cool. And then you were on for 2 episodes, and bad things happened. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that either. It was, and not a nice moment when I read that in the script. What do you want to know about it?
Well, tell us a little bit about the, first of all, like, you'd come off the nice long run in BSG, and where, you know, obviously a very popular show. You guys were doing great in that. And then, you've done a couple other things in between, and all of a sudden you're going to be on Discovery. Now, I had no idea you were going to be on it, really, until I saw you come out in your first scene. I was, like, super stoked about that. So, just tell me a little bit about how you kind of got the job and got casted. Did you have to audition for it? Did they just say, here,
Right.
This is for you, or what? How did it work?
No, I had to audition just like every other schmo, and it was really cool because I had gone. I don't know how many of you are Continues fans. Woo! Yeah.
Woo!
You here. Star Trek Continues. So I had met Vic Mignogna the year before in Germany, in the spring. And, you know, I didn't think anything special about Continues. I'd never seen it, but he was a lovely guy, and I just loved his passion for TOS, and we had a nice conversation, and, you know, I gave him my contact info. Sure, let's stay in touch, whatever. Didn't expect to hear from him. Half the time you meet people at these conventions, you have a nice conversation, and then that's it. And, well, he called me a few months later and said, we would like you to come to Georgia and film an episode. And I said, really? Okay. So, and I didn't know what to expect. You know, it was a fan fiction. I got there and my socks were totally blown off. Like, he said how good the sets were, but nothing could have prepared me for what that was like.
And let's just precursor this by saying you were a big TOS fan. You grew up with the show, so.
I was. I don't know it like a lot of you people know it. I don't. I have a terrible memory. I could watch a movie like today, and in 2 months you could ask me how it ends, and I might not be able to tell you. But it's great for acting that I don't remember how things end. Anyway, but it definitely made a big impact on me as a kid, and I might not know details, but I was definitely a big fan. And so walking onto those TOS sets was like, I was so shocked, but I had a full body response. Like, I was shaking, I started crying. I said, Vic, I don't know what's happening. He said, this is normal. This is what happens to everybody who was a fan from when they were a kid. And he said the way he explained it is, it's like you're transported back to the age that you were when you started watching the show. And that was pretty young for me. So, and I said, you know what, you're right. That's how I feel right now. I feel like a kid. And just tears started coming out. I was like, we're on the bridge. I'm in sick bay. This is so cool. You know, like, I don't know what was happening. Yeah, and the group of people who made Continues were just, he told me, the other thing he said, you're going to love the experience. It's going to be like being on Star Trek, and you're going to walk away with family. Well, he was right. You know, I have not one, but two, but three science fiction families in my life, which is amazing. Battlestar and 2 Star Trek families. And they're just great people. So anyway, you know, I never thought in my life that I would be part of Star Trek. And then I was. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm, you know, in some small way, part of the Star Trek world. How cool is that? And then then they were making a new Star Trek. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And my first audition was for Sonequa's part, for Michael Burnham. You know, everybody and their dog auditioned for this part. And they were very top secret about it. I've never had such a top secret thing go on. Literally, you couldn't even open up the material to get your lines. Because if it was like one of those, it was very Star Trek, if you click on this message and take a picture, the message will self-destruct.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, you have to follow this link, you have to do this thing, you can only open it on one device, and you can't take pictures, you can't reproduce it in any way. So, you know, and it was like, I don't know, 16 pages of dialogue, and it had to be in by the next day. And you know, I just spent like 2 hours just sitting there writing out the lines, like trying to figure out what to do. So anyway, so I had that audition. Didn't go that well, but it was fine. And then a couple months went by, and I was sitting there in a makeup chair doing a photo shoot for the costume designer from Star Trek Continues. And in comes this audition with this code name. And because I had had the previous audition, I knew exactly what it was when I got the audition. And I said, full stop, everybody. I know we got to do this photo shoot, but I have a Star Trek audition right now for the new Star Trek. You guys have to help me, because it's going to take me 2 hours just to get these sides. So everybody went to task for me. We got me the the auditions printed up, so I could learn my lines while we were doing a photo shoot. And of course, it was for a different time zone, so I had to have a buddy come over to my place at 7 a.m., and we were shooting it at 8 a.m. I think I had the audition sent off by like 8:30 a.m. the next morning. 24 hours later, I got the call from my agent. The part's yours. I screamed like a little girl with delight. I was at a friend's house, and he was literally like, "Whoa, what happened to Rekha? Everything okay?" Okay, everything's okay. Nobody's dead. And my agent said, "Pack your bags. You're getting on a plane in 48 hours." I had, and he said, "Pack for a month." So that was all I knew, and I was thrilled.
It's interesting because we've had a lot of people that have come to Vulcan. You ask, so how'd you get the job? Were you a big Star Trek fan before? They go, oh, I was aware of the show. I'd heard of something vaguely called Star Trek, and oh yeah, it was a great job. We had fun. Didn't know, but you were genuinely excited to get this job. I mean, you were kind of geeking out a little bit. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I got to set, and first thing was the costumes. I was like, "Can I please take a picture? I promise I'll only show it to my mom." I was so thrilled. And then on top of that, I'm a huge Michelle Yeoh fan. Big fan of all of her, kung fu fighting movies. And during the fitting, they say, "Oh, well, you're about the same size as Michelle Yeoh. Let's grab Michelle's boots so you try those on to see how those fit." Oh, I'm wearing Michelle Yeoh's boots. It was like Geek City. And then, then going on to set and going, oh my God, I'm on board a Starfleet ship. And it was cool because it was kind of like coming home, because after working for so many years on Battlestar Galactica, I felt very at home to be in the corridors of a ship. But this was Star Trek. And I tell you, I've never been so nervous on a first day in my life. I mean, I've been doing this for quite a few years now. I was shaking in my boots. I really was. And one of the coolest geek moments for me was, I got to do something, I think with the tardigrade. Yeah, it was, when the tardigrade is in Lorca's little dungeon there,
His trophy room.
Yeah, his little trophy room, exactly. Actually, I think that is what it was called.
Yeah, because he had the skeleton of the Gorn there, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's, the tardigrade's in that shielded thing, and I go up and I press some things. Well, I've been used to coming on to shows that have already been going for a year or two. This was the first time where I've been on a set that no one had ever been on. All new characters. I mean, Sonequa and Michelle were the only ones who had already done something. Our first days on Discovery were everyone's first days on Discovery. And so, I had to do something there on the technical board. I don't even know what to call it. And I turned to the director and I said, "So what are we doing here? What gestures should I make to indicate what we're doing?" He said, "Rekha, we've never done this before. You can create canon right now. You decide." Total nerd moment. I was like, "Well, I think maybe I'll do this button and then that button." And he was like, "Whatever. You figure it out." I was like, "Okay."
Oh, that's funny. But nice, you could make up the canon. That's great.
Right? I mean, I don't know if anybody else then looked at what I did and was like, "Oh, you have to do it." I don't know if anybody went to that.
Well, it's like Galaxy Quest with the historical documents, right? You got to do things exactly like you did in the show. So remember that, just in case things, get off the rails.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point.
I'll be like, "No, that's not how you work that device."
That's right. If we don't get it right, we're in trouble. Talk a little bit about the other folks in the cast. You know, Jason Isaacs as Lorca, and of course Sonequa. It's escaping me right now as the girl who plays Tilly. I love her.
Mary Wiseman.
Mary Wiseman. Thank you.
There is nothing
so
to
awesome.
not love about that woman. Honestly, she's
how close is she to her actual character in real life? Because she just seems like she's that kind of person.
She's kind of that kind of person. I mean, she's not. Tilly is very, very insecure, you know. Especially in those first few episodes. I think she kind of finds her way more. So she's not quite so awkward, but she kind of is in a really super endearing way. But she is funny as all. I can't think of the saying right now. I'm a little tired. But yeah, she is super funny, super sweet, so talented. Everybody in this cast is incredibly talented, and they're all really wonderful people. I mean, for a while there was a bit of a joke going around on set that we would all vote for Anthony Rapp to be mayor of whatever city that we lived in. Like, he is incredible. So intelligent and kind and thoughtful, and like one of those kind of superhuman beings who could do like 20 million things at once and do them all incredibly. Sonequa is the perfect Michael Burnham. She is a queen. I don't know how else to say it. She is so kind and graceful, and like every single person that she comes across, she gives her all to, and she's the perfect person to be the head of that show. Michelle Yeoh is the same. She is an absolute queen. She is, you know, like a mom to everybody on that set, and she's funny and smart and just wonderful to be around. Jason is, as you all know, wildly talented, and I just, you know, it was so cool to watch him work, and has his own process, and he's also very funny. Who else we got? We got Mary. I mean, I could just sing everybody's praises all day long. Doug Jones, please. Can you make a sweeter human being? I don't think so. And wildly talented. I mean, the physical life that this man has, to be completely head to toe covered and still communicate so much. I love watching him work.
Well, one of the biggest reasons I like Tilly is because she can drop F-bombs like a boss.
She can.
Like a boss.
Yeah.
Do you, I have to admit, a bunch of the folks in here we're friends with, we sat and watched a lot of these episodes together. And that was the big buzz, is the day she dropped the F-bomb. Then Anthony Rapp right behind her was like, this is not your daddy's Star Trek. No. It was awesome. You guys were swearing left and right, all kinds of stuff. So great. It was great. I think the interesting thing, from a fan point of view, at least mine anyway, was in most of the other Star Treks, it takes a little while to kind of warm up to the cast. You know, they're trying to figure out what they're doing and where they're going and how their characters are going. It was like you guys hit the ground running. Like right away, we knew who you were, what you were about, and we started to really care about you as characters. And I think that was the one difference that I've seen in Discovery versus the other iterations of Star Trek.
That's incredible. You know, I hadn't thought of that, but I tend to agree. Yeah, I think. What do you guys think? You on board with that? Yeah, you know, and that I think we owe in great part to the writers, and the performers, of course. You know, everybody's incredibly talented, but you know, it's got to be there on the page somewhat. And I love our team of writers. They're so good. And, you know, Ted Sullivan is a huge Trek fan. I love that, you know, maybe we have, to some degree, the advantage of being this late along the path of Star Trek, that some people have been watching it since they were kids and deeply invested in the show and thought about it a lot. And I mean, I don't know. I no offense to any of the writers for Next Gen. I don't know how many of them were fans as well. I can only speak to our writing staff, but they're just incredible and wonderful people. And I think I'm gonna guess that part of it too is the gritty factor. Because there's some of like Next Gen and stuff that could be a bit clinical and removed in a way. And I think because this iteration is gritty, it gets more into the heart of things right away, right? You kind of have to go there.
Well, I get the feeling it's because it's still kind of early in the time of the Federation. When Enterprise come out, they were just going out into space, so they're still a little wide-eyed.
Yeah.
By the time Discovery comes around, humanity's been out there for a little while now. They've seen some of the dangers. They know some of the bad things that can happen. But they're still very holding on to more of the humans as we are now versus how they'll be in Next Gen time.
Right.
Right. So they're kind of in that transition. That's kind of the sense I'm getting from it. So maybe it's a little more relatable to audiences as we are now versus Gene Roddenberry's view of how we should be.
Yes. I totally agree with that. I think you're onto something there. And yeah. And also, I can't think, did any of the other ones start with a war? No.
Deep Space
right?
Nine-ish.
Ish. So, but that brings out something where it's like, boom, you're in it right away. Like, this is not all peace and coolness. We're into a mess where you see people's true colors come out and you see them. I mean, that's when we really see what people are made of, right? Is under stress. And that's when your heart goes out to people too. So it kind of makes sense.
Well, and then of course we got introduced to your character in the third episode, and you just came out like a little ball of fire. Like, I'm the security chief. I will hook you up.
Yeah.
You weren't messing around. You were as tough as nails. And I loved it because, again, we'd seen you in BSG where you started off kind of like Tilly in a way, and then
right.
You got tougher and weirder as it went on. But now you were just, I'm the security chief. There was no doubt about it. You'd been around for a while. You knew what you were doing. You were all business. Don't mess with me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, it was very intimidating.
I was intimidated. When I got that call from my agent, after I had the little giggling scream fest, then I said to him, I was like, Ryan, I'm a little scared. He's like, what? What's wrong? I said, I don't know if I can do this. This is a really tough character. I don't know if I can pull this off. He was like, you booked the part? Right. Okay, they bought it, so I can do it.
Well, and that's something you and I talked about earlier. One of the things I noticed, me and some friends were talking about this the other day as we've been rewatching the show, and I'm watching you. You've got the phaser rifle, the phaser in your hand. You look totally comfortable with these things. Like you were running around like you had one of these things in your hand all your life.
Gosh, that's a huge compliment. Thank you so much.
But honestly, how many times with that thing in your hand when you're on set did you go pew pew pew?
Seriously, I can't tell you how many times all of us are like, okay, don't do that when we're rolling. Don't do that. Whatever.
I don't think you can help it. It's just human nature.
It's so human nature to make sound effects. We've been doing it all since we were kids, right?
Did you actually do it once on camera?
Yep.
Were you alone?
Nope. Rolling. Sorry. Going again. Yeah.
That's why you should never give actors guns, I guess. Especially ray guns. So now you came on, you did your first episode. I'm watching this going, yay, Rekha Sharma's on this is going to be awesome, and then you died, crap. What? I mean, it was a great death, don't get me wrong. I mean, you got split from there into one end to the other, and I mean, you lived for like 2 seconds, long enough to get you to sick bay to go, yeah, I know, she's dead. But that had to be horribly disappointing.
Horribly disappointing. It was a rough weekend.
But did you know at the time they were going to bring you back?
No, I did not.
So,
and they didn't know either.
Oh, so it was still pretty much up in the air. Okay, so explain to us the phone call. Hey, Rekha, what you doing this week? You wanna come back for a couple of days?
Well, it was, it was a bit of a process, and I kind of was in on a bit of the conversation, so it didn't come as a surprise. But we were never sure, if it was going to happen, because, of course, it was something the writers wanted to do, and, some of the writers were a bit like, why did we ever kill her off in the first place, and we got to bring her back, and but, of course, it's such a process to get approved, and I was also a bit of a snafu, because I was just put in my green card application at the time too, so we had to get permission from USCIS to actually leave the country, and there was a lot of moving parts, but it all came together, and everyone was thrilled that it all came together, myself included, and I was so happy to be back with everyone.
Sure, you go back and you shoot the scenes in the alternate universe where you have to be even more badass.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I didn't expect that. Because I thought, what's Mirror Landry going to be like? Well, it was a tricky one for the writers, I think, because I still had to be Lorca's right-hand gal. And we know Lorca's just trouble through and through, right? So, but what was interesting was going, okay, well, now I'm under the pin of Georgia. Now I am not in charge. I'm not the one who's calling the shots. I'm oppressed. I've been in a, what do you call those things? Torture chamber?
Agonizer.
Agonizer, thank you. I was in the agonizer for months, looking pretty rough. A little sweaty and stinky. I'm still trying to figure out, how did my hair look so good?
Well, there's ugly, then there's TV ugly. So let's, come on.
Exactly. But I was like, can you make me look a little bit prettier, maybe? No? Okay, fine. It was so cool, honestly, to think about what that was like, to live in a mirror universe, to live in a universe that was so dog eat dog, and so I watched Mirror Mirror in preparation for it, and which was fun. But to do a grittier version of Mirror Mirror, it was challenging.
Well, at least you didn't have to come back with a goatee.
Thank God for that.
I thought that was the indicator of a mirror universe, is all the characters had to come back and looking more evil.
Goatees or just shorter skirts. Do you guys know about Uhura fighting for her skirt?
Nope.
I heard about this from somebody. Apparently, back in the day, Nichelle Nichols fought for that little skirt. They were going to put her in something that was more masculine. And she was like, I am a woman. And it was, in that time, women's lib has come in many different forms. And I love that she fought for that. Because women's lib doesn't always mean that you have to, be equal or neutralize your gender. She was like, no, I got these legs and I'm working them. Thank you very much. I just love that.
And there's puberty. Yep, just the right time. So what did you think of the kind of the twist with Lorca, finding out that he was, spoiler alert, have everybody watched it? Okay, good, because we're going to wreck it here. Finding out that Lorca was from the Mirror Universe. A lot of people we talked about, I saw that coming a mile away. Bullshit. I didn't see it coming.
Some people
That
did.
was super cool. Okay, that was like, cool. Oh my God, that's the best thing ever. And then they moved on from there, so it was great. So, what was your kind of take on that?
Well, it totally made sense. It totally made sense for me. It was, that's why Landry became who she was. in the Prime universe. What I would have loved to have seen is Landry before Lorca had his way with her. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that's a really interesting thing to explore. You know, they always say, be careful the company you keep. You know, how does a Starfleet person, because Landry, to me, and some other people have commented on this, was in a way one of the most interesting Starfleet characters ever because she was so badass. And calling people garbage, I mean, that is not Starfleet behavior. And I chalk that up to Lorca's influence.
See, I go with she was kind of leaning that way anyway. I think Lorca just figured out how to bring it out.
That's not how I saw it, but...
I don't know. You're pretty badass to begin with, I think, though.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
We'll never know.
This is true.
Or will we?
Well, we might. All right, well, let's just see. Anybody else? Questions. Throw those hands in the air like you just don't care. There's right there in the green shirt.
What's happening over there?
Oh, that's or the Nerf Wars.
Dude.
I noticed they're all wearing safety glasses, yet not goggles, except for the one guy. Shoot him in the head. All right, pay attention. Okay, green shirt, stand up and holler it out, my friend.
What was it like working with that trans work creature that you got killed? Was it like a...
The tardigrade?
Yeah, was it an actual latex guy in a suit, or...
So we had
was it computer
a photograph of a tardigrade on a very large piece of cardboard. And then we had a dude in a skin-tight bright green suit who was amazing.
So how did it feel
And he was in
rolling
a
around?
skin-tight suit. Stunt guy. You girls know what I'm talking about. Hello. But, you know, he had to kind of like, you know, do these, especially for when he came out and was flying across the room, you know, he would bound himself from one end of the room to the other to give, so the camera could get that sense of movement. And then it was, you know, CGI. But then, you know, when we had to act, it was like an X, you know, a piece of fluorescent green tape. Or just, he's over there, and now he's on the ceiling, and then piece of cardboard. You know, you just work with a lot of different things.
Like, you notice everybody in the future, they literally wear the tightest clothes ever. Guys like my size will never be in the future. Yeah, it's like 4 pounds of Jell-O in a 1 pound bag. It's not a good look.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, that guy's from the past. Somebody get him something fatter. This thing ain't working for him. Onesies. Why does everybody in the future wear a onesie?
I know. In the future, you know, we just eat better, we're athletic. You know, I thought of that too. Somebody said something about, like, I can't remember when it was, but at some point somebody said, God, everybody in the cast is so skinny. I said, do you think they're going to get any extras that, I mean, we all have to fit into these things.
They're not exactly forgiving. Oh my goodness, she had a grape for lunch.
Yeah.
You can see it.
I know.
Okay, no, I saw somebody else with their hand up over this. Oh, okay, and way in the back. Way in the back. Okay, young lady.
Yeah, my nephew does trains fight choreography for
Awesome.
TV shows and movies, and I'm wondering if you've done any of that. Like, have you trained in, like, for the Star Trek? Have they trained you in any? Do you have a choreographer or anything?
We had an incredible stunt team for Star Trek Discovery, and I had like the time of my life. You know, kind of a big Matrix fan, and watching the making of. You know, it's like a dream to have all of that kind of training and do all that cool stuff. And as you guys know, I'm a big Michelle Yeoh fan. I do have a little bit of kung fu training. So when they called me back to do the Mirror episode and said that I was going to be in this huge fight scene, I was pretty darn excited because Michelle Yeoh is going to be in it. And they actually brought me to Toronto a few days early, and the first 2 days was just stunt training. And those stunt people are amazing. I have never worked out for 6 hours. Have you? Oh my God. It was like, really, we're just gonna do this until what hour? Lunch break. And then we're just gonna do more of this. Okay. It was incredible. Those people are so fit, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I was tired at the end of the day, but I loved every minute of it. And they are just the nicest people, and it was so cool to be a part of it for that many hours, to go through one choreography and then have the choreographer go, actually, no, we're going to change this bit of the fight, and go, okay, now I just finally got that move, and now I got to switch it to a different move. And then you work with the stunt people, and then then Sonequa and I got to practice for a while, and then Michelle and Jason were practicing. It was like, try not to get punched in the face by Sonequa because I'm too busy looking at Michelle Yeoh on the other side of the ring. It was just awesome. Super awesome. Yeah.
That's cool.
Thanks for the
Okay,
question.
so another hand come up. Lady in the red right there.
I was just wondering, for like costume, so this is a question that we have wondered. If you're playing Guinan, is it appropriate to dress and look like a black person if you're a white person?
Oh.
Because when you're dressed as an alien,
Yeah.
you just, like, so Andorian is blue,
Yeah.
because that's it. So Guinan is black.
Yeah.
But is that okay, or is that considered, yeah?
I don't know, with all these like politically correct rules and stuff. The way I look at it is, if your heart's in the right place, hopefully that'll come through. You just got to be you, I think, and do what you feel inspired to do, and be respectful of others. And if somebody doesn't get it and somebody's offended by it, I would say just engage in a conversation. Just be kind, hear their side of the story, try not to get defensive, ask them questions. We all need to do that, to ask each other questions and hear each other's side of the story more, and just be open. Okay, I'm sorry if I've offended you. Can you tell me more about what this means to you and how I've offended you? And let them tell you. And then, hopefully they'll be open to hearing your side of the story. But if not, if they're really upset, at least you've done your part, right? And you apologize, but there's so many rules out there, we can't guess what everybody else's rules are. That's my 2 cents anyway. I don't know. If somebody else disagrees with me, well, they can say they're a bit too, but there's no way of guessing. You can't make everybody happy, so you just make yourself happy and try to love everyone, all right?
Have you seen anybody cosplay as you yet? I'm betting someone has somewhere.
I feel like it has happened, but I can't remember. Is that bad?
Be it Landry or Tori from BSG or any of your other characters, but just I
feel like I feel like it's more general, but I feel like maybe somebody did once something very specific. But usually, people come in their, Battlestar, the Viper pilot suits, or I don't know if I've ever seen anybody do, hey guys, you know what? This is Tori's blouse. It's a little stretched from all these years, but I got to keep a little bit of my clothes, and this is one of them. So there you go.
That's cool. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, it was interesting what you said earlier and last night about being large and in charge in the Prime universe, and then kind of being vulnerable, because that is such a paradox to everyone else. And
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
so kind of convinced by that I thought for sure that we were going to find out, oh, that must have been Mirror Landry who got killed shooting at the tardigrade, and this must be Prime Landry, because Mirror Landry was actually so, at first, kind of vulnerable and broken and had to reorganize.
Yeah.
So
you actually saw that.
Yeah, it shone through for me.
Cool, because not everybody really saw the subtlety.
Right.
So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So what I'm wondering then is, when you're formulating Landry Prime, did she have a backstory with Lorca, or did she first meet Mirror Lorca and then kind of get subsumed by his kind of toxic warlike mentality from the start?
The latter bit is all I knew. You know, we didn't have an elaborate backstory for Landry, but in talking to the writers and what made sense based on the script and what I knew of what it meant to be a Starfleet officer, that's what made the most sense to me. Was, you know, because they were all saying, you know, it was there in the script where he was like, you know, I apologize when we're doing the bridge simulation, you know, war simulation, and we all fail, and, you know, I say we're going to do better next time. And he says, well, you better, you know, I would hope so, because it can't get worse than that. And we're all like, ooh, you know, because Lorca and all the, you know, they told us, they were like, Lorca's coming from a different place, and he is trying to whip you all into a different level of warrior. And, you know, that's what I took from it. I was like, okay, he's been whipping me into a whole different level of warrior than I ever thought I could be. And it was, I mean, everybody that I knew, and I did, you know, somebody asked last night, I think, if you know, and Tucker, I think, responded to this, do you end up pulling from other roles that you've done for new roles? And certainly in this one, you know, I had worked for a few years in a reality where everybody that I loved had been killed, you know, and were continuing to be killed. And I think that was the case for Landry. I think everyone she had loved had been killed. And Michael Burnham was the one responsible. So boy, oh boy, when when she came onto my ship, boy, did I ever have a beef to pick with her. So there were no niceties. As far as I was concerned, she was responsible. That's what we were all led to believe in the media, you know. So yeah, you take a person who had everyone that she loved ripped away from her, killed by the Vulcans, by the Klingons. Sorry, I'm in Vulcan. I've been saying the word Vulcan a lot. No offense.
Friends off.
All killed by Klingons. So, hating the Klingons big time, hating Michael Burnham big time, and then here comes a man who tells me what I need to do to set things straight in the universe. And I'm a military trained person. I follow orders, you know. That's a recipe for badass Landry.
And she was. Quickly, again, you know, you came into Discovery, and kind of a continuation of a series that's been going for, you know, for over 50 years. Battlestar Galactica. I mean, this was a reimagining, they called it, reboot reimagining of the, for me at 12 years old, awesome 1978 series. Maybe for some who remember it differently, maybe not so awesome, I don't know. But when I first heard it was coming out, I was like, oh, this is great. It was a cool show. And then again, you popped up. Did you come in late the first season or early in the second?
Second season.
Second season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was after Billy got dusted. So it was his turn at that point.
Yeah.
And then, now when you first got the job and you came in, were you going to be Rosalind's right hand the whole way through, or was there a plan at some point that, yes, you, spoiler alert, will become the evil Cylon that you became?
There was no plan at that point. I was Rosalind's right hand gal. I was on for 2 episodes. And it went well, and they said, we'll bring you back. And so yeah, I was just, essentially Billy's replacement, and they wanted somebody who was quite different than Billy, and I really think they were figuring it out until the last minute who the final 5 were going to be, and I was pretty grateful for that character arc.
And then, and literally, like you were kind of confused leading up to it. There's some Jimi Hendrix music in your head, and things were getting a little weird. Then all of a sudden, you found out who exactly you were, and like, click, you turned from kind of well-mannered, slightly confused Tori to murderous, crazy Tori, which was awesome.
Well, I don't think she was crazy.
Well, okay, not necessarily crazy, but slightly murderous and maybe looking down upon puny humans a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was that, thing of like, we all had to have different experiences, otherwise it would have been really boring if we all did the same thing. So I think Tori's journey was the exploration of what happens if you fully embrace something and just go for it. And it can be dangerous, it can be very dangerous. But she was an extremely, what I thought about Tori, and I had the pleasure of kind of talking to Ron and the writers about my ideas about Tori and how that might translate into what happens in this new iteration of her. And what I could say about Tori is that she's extremely loyal and, knew how to, as a politician, make really tough decisions for the greater good. Because that's what politicians have to do. They are the ones, who, unfortunately, who have to decide, okay, we are in war, and either this many people can die or this many people can die. And I have to push the button and say this many people will die so that this many people can live. And, we experienced that with the whole, the baby thing and, difficult conversations that she had to have with Rosalind, make those difficult decisions. And now, in a way, actually to be more greatly persecuted. Because now, to discover you're a Cylon on a ship full of humans, to be the very thing that you have been trying to kill your entire life to preserve your well-being, well, that's super dangerous. So, a whole next level of self-preservation. Yeah, eat or be eaten, kill or be killed. So, yeah, tough circumstances.
Well, you talked a little bit about the show last night at the meet and greet. You were talking about, like Edward James Olmos, how he kind of set the tone for everything. You guys had different guest stars coming in and out, like most shows do, but you had that core cast of people, and you described them very much as a family. I mean, these are people you spent, 4 or 5 years with, for a large part of a lot of days, and you got to either really, really good friends or you really didn't, that kind of thing. So talk a little bit about just the kind of the grind that you go through with it, and how you get to be such good friends with these folks.
I think it has to do with attitude. You can be there for hours, and I've experienced it where people are just kind of keep to themselves a little bit and don't really open up and embrace each other, and that's what you have at the end of the day. It's like, okay, we had a good day, but see you later. Or you can have, I'm going to spend 16 hours with these people, and I want to have an awesome time. And, the laughs that we had, the conversations that we had, part of it too is we were all so proud to be there. And, everyone was really given a lot of creative freedom. So everyone got to bring themselves. There are some shows that you work on where people are not really given much room to move. So they're kind of constantly frustrated because they're being treated like pieces of furniture, like, you know, you do this, you do that. I'm the one who's calling the shots. Instead of like, I hired you because you have gifts and you have gifts. What are those gifts? What do you see in this story that I don't? You know, what's the point of working together as a team if each team player doesn't get to bring their best? You know, and then it's that balance of, I want every person to bring their best, and you know, that's a less egotistical place to work from, to not assume that I know everything. To let everybody bring their best, but then still have that, okay, and I'm holding this vision so that things don't get too far off, right? And I think that's the magic place, when you can kind of work from a place of, here's the playground. We got to stay in this playground, but in that playground, please go to town. Show me what you got. And that's a happy and work environment, you know? And it feels really good to talk about this, because I know that you all have your communities, whether it's your families or your workplaces or whatever, and I hope that, you know, I want this for everybody in their lives, that we can all remember to really value what each individual has to offer. And I just think you get a better product at the end of the day, and a better experience throughout, and more fun. And again, you know, sort of like what we talked about earlier, you know, whatever you want to do, as long as it's loving and respectful and you're all listening to each other, you know, it's like good music. You know, a good musician is going to listen to all, you know, jazz. I don't know, there are too many metaphors, but good jazz musicians, they all listen. That's what it means to improv. And I think that's what life is, one big improv, right? Which means you got to listen to each other, but you all got to play the same tune.
And there we go. We've done our hour. We're going to leave it at that. So very much a big round of applause, you guys. Rekha Sharma, she's awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, somebody's going to help us.
Just to say.
Oh, what did you get? What'd you get?
Oh, this is so awesome.
Oh, nice.
It's me
Oh, and Doc Cottle.
Doc Cottle.
That's nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna post this for everybody. You guys all know that Donnelly Rhodes passed away. Yeah, this January, I think it was. Yeah, January.
Yeah, if you don't know, iconic Canadian actor, iconic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I loved him as Doc Cottle.
Wasn't he great?
He was.
He's a huge career. We were so lucky to have him for Battlestar. And yeah, we all loved him and remember him fondly. Yeah.
Yep. Well, you know, and we all love you. And thank you so much for coming to Vul-Con.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, big round of applause. Rekha Sharma. Thanks a lot, you guys.